Welcome to the Joy of Coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 218 of The Joy of Coding. How's it going? My name's Mike Conley. I'm going to be hacking on some Firefox stuff today. Let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Let me just share my screen. So today, what are we doing? Let me pull up today's notes. Yeah, today is June 10th, 2020. A reminder, if this is your first time viewing the stream, that no plan survives breakfast. This is a stream where I work on things and I don't necessarily have a clear idea of what is going to happen. Like, I don't have pre-written solutions. I'm hacking on stuff. I'm dealing with problems as they come. You're watching a software developer deal with problems, like I would in my normal day job. So I don't have like a stack of solutions ready to just sort of tap out rote or anything. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the handout section. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link should be in the video description. And if you're watching this on Twitch, then I'm just about to drop the link in the Twitch chat. Here it is. Twitch chat agenda. That's the first thing. The second thing is that there is an episode guide. So the episode guide is completely viewer-driven by viewers just like you. And it has links to not only all of the videos, like all of the previous episodes, most of the previous episodes. It also is like handy point form coverage of like the things that I did, things that went on during the stream, maybe what I talked about, etc., etc. Handy links. And you should check it out. And if you yourself are interested in contributing to the episode guide, because like I said, it's completely viewer driven. That means that you can help change it. You can add notes. You can add addenda. You can help make it clearer or easier to use. There's a GitHub repository, the link to which is in my the agenda. Just follow that. There's also a link to, for documentation on how to contribute and like what is a pull request, what's a repository, that sort of thing. There is one pull request in the repository. This was opened 11 days ago for episode 216, and I wanted to just take a look at that now and merge it in before we continued. So this is from SmurfD, a prolific, I would say the most prolific. I think that's a safe assumption, the most prolific contributor to the episode guide. Thank you, SmurfD. If you're watching, you're great. And so we're going to look at this review request for 2000, being so ambitious. Episode 216. Let's take a look. So the date looks right. It was May 20th, I believe, 216. Yeah, that's right. And it was episode 216, May 20th, 2020. We're going to make sure that the link to the actual episode is correct. Yeah, that's right. And we're going to make sure that the link to the agenda is correct. Yeah, it looks right. Yeah. Okay, and then the topics that I covered. Yep, I also talked about, we were looking at a memory leak. That's right. We looked at inner and outer windows, how picture-in-picture works, how I use Mercurial, inner and outer windows. I had given a shout-out to art school teachers. We talked about rebasing and replaying with RR, and what tree herder symbols, various tree herder symbols mean, and yeah, filtering on what tests ran. Great. Yeah, this all looks good. So, I should also make sure that the rate this episode link is correct. I don't think I check that every time, but it looks like it's correct. So I think we're good here. So thank you very much, SmurfD. Going to merge that in. Always thank your contributor. Thanks. Boom. And that's the episode guide. What am I working on today? Well, the first thing I want to look at is I actually want to submit some patches that I just wrote. We have this thing that we've been working on for a while. I've actually been paused on it because I got shifted over to a different project, but there are some tests I've written for this thing called the About Home Startup Cache. And this is a component that I've been working on that allows us to periodically cache the contents of About Home to disk so that on startup we can like quickly read them out, which is different from like the normal startup cache that Firefox has, because the About Home startup cache is something that changes periodically while you browse the internet based on like the things you're bookmarking and like the pocket stories that have been downloaded and the configuration you've made to your About Home or whatnot. So that changes over time. And it could change multiple times during a browsing session. And so this is different from the startup cache that normally powers the rest of Firefox. That startup cache populates after an upgrade, after you've downloaded the assets for, your version of Firefox, and it runs. After it runs the first time, the startup cache will go, okay, well, this is what the bytecode I've compiled for all the JavaScript. This is the prototypes for all of the Zool documents and HTML documents that I've used to build up the browser UI. Now I will take that sort of bytecode representation of those things and shove it into the startup cache in the right sort of an optimized order. And those things don't change periodically. It's not designed to handle periodic changes over the course of a session. So that's why the About Home startup cache is special. And I wrote some tests for it, and the tests were working, but then more recently they started to fail, and I found out why. And the reason why is because we recently, not myself, but another developer, our Jessup, landed some patches for the Fission project, which is like out-of-process iframes, that allows us to pre-allocate content processes, like multiple content processes, and then transmute those content processes to whatever content process we need as the browser navigates. So what that means is, supposing I have Fission enabled right now, and I probably have a couple of pre-allocated content processes just sort of sitting in the background. Let's see. If I go to About Support and I look at my remote processes, I have 14 of them. There are 3 sitting in the back that are pre-allocated. And what that means is that it's ready to become a content process for a particular frame. So if I were to go to mozilla.org, I've probably consumed one of those content processes. Content processes. Where did it go? I think accidentally by refreshing it, I lost my zooming. Pre-allocated is still 3. Privileged about it's 1 web content process. 92733. No, that's a different content process. So I have a feeling. Well, that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work, anyways. Let's try loading a different. Let's load some of these pocket stories. Consume some more content processes. And now reload. Go to remote processes. What? Is it because it's not hard reloading? Yeah, that's why. I need to hard reload it. Now I've got 11 isolated web content processes. And I guess I'm pre-allocating really quickly. That's why these keep filling up. This number went up, this number did not. And that's because as soon as I consumed them, the pre-allocator pre-allocated more. Okay. But the idea is that these pre-allocated content processes are just kind of like sitting in the background, and then you use them. And that's so that when you browse from site to site, we don't have to spin up a new content process as soon as you navigate, because navigating happens all the time. Iframes will load, and we don't want to have to deal with the overhead of launching a content process whenever you're navigating an iframe. That's going to slow us down. So as a performance optimization, we have these pre-allocated content processes just kind of sitting in the background waiting for speed. There's just a maximum of 3 of them, and that we've tuned that number. That seems to be the right number. And the idea is that the privileged about content process, which is what we use to host About Home and About New Tab, those can also be pre-allocated. And my code wasn't dealing with that. The code for the startup, the About Home startup cache wasn't prepared for that case. And there's no way to detect whenever a content process shifts from the pre-allocated state to whenever it's allocated for the privileged about case or any other case. And so I've written a patch that is a very simple patch. What does it do? Fires an observer notification whenever we set the remote type. And then I've updated the code that I have here to also observe that observer notification. It'd be easier if I just show you the patch instead of doing all this. So I'm going to push this up for review. Here, let me zoom in so you can see better. I'm going to push those things up. And what I've done is I've actually, the tests that I wrote excuse me, I wrote these patches, and then this patch just came recently, and then I had to modify about home startup cache. And so I've reorganized them so that those sort of prerequisite patches come first. But what I'm going to have to do is reorganize the relationship of the patches in the stack. Because if we take a look at the stack, it knows about these three, and it knows about this one. This one's like unrelated. This is dependency. It's waiting on these to land, but it's not what we're dealing with today. So you can ignore that for now. But this is the one that I wrote that Jessup gave me feedback on that I've hopefully addressed. And I've added a new one in here to actually pay attention to the observer notification that I added, but that's not in the list. And so that's because it's a brand new patch. And so I'm going to show you how to like sort of rewire these things now that, after you push them. And the good news is if all goes well, and I don't know if they will, but if all goes well, there is a simple command to mozfab that will reorganize your patches for you. And why it doesn't, I don't know why it doesn't do this on its own. I suspect it's because we're being really cautious. We don't want people, we don't want to reorganize the stack of patches in Fabricator without like the developer's consent. And so it becomes an extra step. And who knows, maybe down the line it will become automatic. I don't know. But that's what's going on. So pushing this stuff up, it's going to take a couple minutes because I guess Fabricator is, or maybe it's Mercurial, I don't know which, but it's dealing with pushing these up. And then once that's done, we're going to run this command mozfab reorg. And mozfab reorg looks at my stack of patches that I currently have and figures out the relationship and then communicates that relationship to Fabricator so that it can rewire itself. Oh, interesting. And now it's doing some rebasing. Presumably this rebasing is because this new commit I added needed to get its commit message updated by mozfab because it pulls down the URL of the I get this periodically. This is a weird bug where whenever you attempt to rebase, whenever you add a patch earlier in the stack, a new one, and then use mozfab submit, it fails here. And I think everything is kind of in an okay state. It's just that it's complaining that part of the rebase failed, but it's like it's in a fine state. I don't know like why it complains, but there it is. Here we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do mozfab reorg, and I'm going to ask it to try and reorg the patches and let's see what it does. So it's going to examine D78908 has multiple children. So that's not going to work. I don't know who D78908 is, but let's take a quick look. Oh, it's this one. Let's reload. So yeah, okay. So it interpreted what I did whenever I did mozfab submit as there's like a fork now. And that's not correct. I need this to become a child of this. And that's why mozfab reorg is being really cautious. So I have to do it manually. So, okay, I will do it manually. And the way I will do that is by going to this revision, and I will edit the related revisions and change the parent revision to this one. So now, if I look at the stack, we get this nice linear history. That's what we want. And let's take a quick look at the patch. So the patch is like we add a new in this part where we like transition the pre-allocated process from one type, the pre-allocated type to the one that we want. I fire this IPC content process type set observer notification. And then in the other patch that I wrote, I handle that observer notification. I say like, okay, we're going to add an observer and we remove it when we shut down. But also when we observe that stuff for the about home startup cache, we're going to fall through and do exactly what we normally do whenever the content process is created. Because from the perspective of the about home startup cache, creating the about privileged about content process is the equivalent of transitioning it from the pre-allocated type to the privileged about type. Like it's the same behavior. It's just we've created one because we know we're loading a privileged page, and when we do that, we want to run these steps. So that's what's going on here. And that allows the tests to pass because they were failing before, and that's what I needed to do here. So that's up for review. That's the first thing I wanted to do today. And so that's it. All right, that's the episode. Thanks for watching. No, we're going to do some other stuff. So we did this part. That's now waiting for review. Before I continue, I wanted to give another shout out to another Twitch show that maybe you know about, maybe you don't. It's from a Mozilla engineer. Her Twitch name is CodeHag, and she's got this show called Compiler, which I was talking about last week. And there was an episode that aired yesterday that you should check the recording for. I think the recordings are up on Twitch. And Yulia, that's her name. She was talking about the sort of things that you go through whenever you're standardizing JavaScript. So I think like there was work from the TC39. Is that what they're called? The standards committee, the JavaScript standards committee. And she was working through like, I think there was a meeting and she was going through what had happened at that meeting and, you know, what that means for JavaScript and then I think she got into some coding. And then there's another episode coming up on Friday and you should check those out. You can check out her schedule here. Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time. You should check it out. So that's a quick plug for CodeHag. You should totally check that out. So what do I want to work on now? I want to work on the WebRTC indicator. I've been working on this indicator for a couple of weeks now. Maybe you are... Okris says, see you. Thanks for the stream. See you, Okris. Maybe you're familiar with it. Maybe you aren't. I think I was working on it last week. It's this thing that I've been working on. So like we can like show this little notification window whenever you're sharing, and then you can stop sharing, that sort of thing. And it'll work for like, the idea is it will work for screen and webcam sharing stuff. So for example, I'm going to go to talkie.io, which is a pretty great WebRTC chat system, free to use. And I'm going to share my camera. I don't know if this is going to break OBS. I hope it doesn't. You can see my green screen behind me now. Look at this. This is crazy. And then I'm going to use the MacBook microphone. And hopefully this also doesn't break OBS. Doesn't appear to be. But now, like, the stream, the Talkie site is taking this stuff. And you can see I've got this, like, little indicator at the bottom that allows me to control, or, like, makes it easier for me to find the controls for revoking the permissions I've given this website. So that's what this thing does. And then if I were to join this call and share my screen, because that's another thing you can do. Let's see. Let's share Talkie. Where's Talkie? Talkie. I'll share myself. So we'll open a black hole and share ourselves. Then this like little stop sharing thing appears, and I can stop the screen sharing here. But that apparently the way Talkie deals with that is it shuts everything down. But if the user revokes the permission, it shuts everything down. But I can also like stop sharing here, like that, and then that goes away. So that's working. And then I can like minimize this indicator. That's a new feature. I can move this indicator anywhere on the screen. Like on Mac OS, this indicator never existed. There was only these icons in the menu bar. So we've added it for Mac OS. And on Windows and Linux, we had this like little notch in the top that people have been finding very frustrating, especially lately, because I think a lot of people are like doing more web conferencing. You know, they're working from home. You know, that's the reality with the pandemic that's going on. So people are working from home and they're using WebRTC more. And if they're Firefox users, they're seeing that little notch more than they're used to. And so that's why we're paying attention to it now. It's like, hey, you know, this is an opportunity to improve the lives of people who are working from home. And there's a big list of bugs. Let's see. Let me find the bug list. It was like WebRTC ride the trains. Ride the trains. Yeah, this one. 1642799. And I've closed a bunch of bugs, but there are still some remaining. We're going to look at the bug list. And we're going to sort by priority so we can talk about the P1s first. So the good news is that a lot of these are already like the fixes in flight. Like there's the making sure that the new WebRTC indicator is keyboard accessible, that we can reach it with the keyboard. That has been accepted by, like, the patch has been accepted, and I believe I requested landing. I thought I did. It's possible that the tree is closed. Let's see. I thought I requested that this land. No, I didn't. So we can actually like request landing of this right now. So I'll do that. Oh, you know what I was doing? I think I was waiting for running the tests locally to make sure that they all passed before landing it. And I think I ran them, and I think they did pass. But that was, yeah, I got interrupted. So anyway, that landing's queued. If the tests don't pass, I'll certainly hear about it. But this should work. Let's see. Actually, now I'm worried. Let's run the tests. I'm just a little worried. So I'm going to check out this revision that has the same patches that just landed. Like I should have done this before, but I didn't. And I'm going to build with artifact so it's faster, and I'm going to go mock build. So this is one thing that I'm hoping to look at today. The other thing that's in this bug list is on Ubuntu and on Linux in general, the way that the indicator looks right now, it hasn't looked like this for a couple of days, but that's because the indicator was like kind of broken. But if you were to try Ubuntu or like a Linux build of Firefox Nightly right now, you'd notice that the indicator has a title bar and it has the close button on it. And we don't want to show that. We don't want to have the title bar on it. We want it to just be the indicator part. And the good news is that there is platform support. Dennis says that Autoland is closed right now. Is it? You're right. I've got this handy little toolbar button that tells me the tree status. That add-on, if you're curious, by the way, let me just put a link in, I believe is just called tree status. Tree tabs, tree status for Mozilla. Tree status for Mozilla by Ian. So I'm going to put that in the notes as well. Tree status for Mozilla add-on. And that's how I get notifications sent whenever the trees open or close. I think that's pretty handy. So on Linux, we get this title bar, and we don't want this title bar. And the good news is that there's prior art to not have the title bar, and that's thanks to picture-in-picture, which is something that I'd worked on. And Martin Stransky from Red Hat actually, believe it or not, here's some fun trivia. Folks from Red Hat more or less own the GTK layer, the widgeting layer of for Firefox and Gecko. They own that layer. They're the reviewers, so they really know their stuff, and they know how to make Firefox work on Linux like the way you'd want. And I wanted to take a look and see if we can get rid of the title bar on the Linux version of the indicator. And the good news is that I sort of did it. Like, it was pretty straightforward, but there was a problem. And the problem was that, yes, I can get rid of the title bar, but I cannot, I just make sure this is built. I cannot minimize or restore the page properly. So let's build, and then I'll demonstrate the problem. Now, this is a debug build, so this is going to be a really slow process to show you this, and I apologize in advance. But the reason I did this as a debug build is because I've gotten a little bit of advice from one of the fellows from Red Hat. His name's Martin, who told me that the reason that minimizing and restoring isn't working for the WebRTC indicator is because of a particular style flag that is set on the window in the widgeting layer. And let's take a quick peek at that comment. I see the pip window can't be minimized on, oh yeah. The lack of maximize capability is caused by GTK window type hint utility, at least for the pip window. And if we look for that hint, well, first of all, let's try and figure out more about what that hint is. Hint utility. Utility windows which are not detached toolbars or dialogues. Let's see. So apparently you can't like just minimize and restore a utility window. Let's double check. I've never used. I'm not really super familiar with GTK. The one that disables the 2 buttons in the decoration is type hint menu. Disable, minimize. You can look at this method here. Set type hint. Set the value to one of these. Any of these will disable, minimize, or maximize. And that's what we don't want. So what are these other hints? Hint desktop, hint utility. Let's go back. I actually like this search result, so I'm going to open a new here's the GTK PHP source. I guess it'll have to do. So like if you set it to one of these, the one that disables the 2 buttons in the on the decoration is type hint menu. Set type hint. Bladed Thesis, I think that's your name. Bladed Thesis asks, are you Canadian? I am Canadian. Yes, I am Canadian. So here are the different types of hints. A normal top level window. There are extended window manager hints. Oh, let's check those out. Dialog window, a window used to implement a menu, window used to implement toolbars, a splash screen, a utility. See, that actually makes sense, a utility window. A desktop background window, pop-up menu, a tooltip, a notification. What are we looking at here? Some kind of spec. Is this the window management spec for X? Oh boy. Minimize. May be iconified. Net WM action minimize indicates that the window may be iconified. Okay. Does look like some of the stuff we actually manipulate ourselves. Maybe we're able to like change the property so that it's minimizable. Iconifiable? What's it? WM action minimize. Maybe we can have the utility window be minimizable. How to minimize an X window on a low level. Minimize tool utility. Sorry, a lot of ideas are rushing through my head. And yeah, so let's minimize. I don't want to remove them. I want to add minimizing capability. Well, let me just let that percolate in my head. Danny Colin says, welcome to hell. Great. Great. Thanks for confirming. Wondering how reliable the process pronunciation is for calling that content process. I'm more used to saying process. I think that's more of a Canadianism. Process. What process are you using? Talk to me more about this content process. Yeah, I suspect that that's a Canadianism. Americans, I think, tend to use process. I don't know why the difference. Canadians are wacky. Okay, so we have ourselves our nightly in debug mode. Now let's go to this page to demonstrate the... Again, I apologize for how slow and laggy this is. This is because this is a debug build, and those are inherently slow. So we should get our little dialogue in a second. There we go. So now we are drawing in the title bar. That's good. That's what we want. We can move it. Hey, and it's got this nice drop shadow. That's really nice too. Now the problem is that if I minimize it, it's gone. That's great. But where is it? How do I get it back? And the answer is I can't. There is no, like if I go over here and I choose like all windows, it's not in the window list. It's just gone. And Firefox still knows about this window. It knows it exists, but the window is gone. So I want to know more about what this window was defined with. Was it set to be a utility window? And if so, can we manipulate it so that the utility window is minimizable? Maybe all utility windows in Gecko should be minimizable. I don't actually know. This is not my area of expertise, the GTK stuff. I'm really kind of out of my depth, but I'm going to try some stuff out. We can just sort of check it out. So what I'm going to do is I've added this math.sign method or function call. You've probably seen me do this trick before, where if I'm using RR, I can use math.sign so I can like set a breakpoint in native code and know where I am. Because math.sign is not something that is typically called in the front end of the code. And so I can set a breakpoint for this native code, and then I can halt here, and then I'll know I'm just about to open the window. SmurfD says, iconizable might come from the old window maker Windows manager that follow X11 quite closely. Maybe. Could be. Anyways, let's try this out. So the way I do this is mock run debugger RR. Now, this is going to be painfully slow because not only do we now have a debug build, we have a debug build that is running through the RR debugger, and that's going to slow everything down. And it's like really, really powerful. It's really, really great, but it's going to be painfully slow. We might be able to do a couple of things at once. Like I might, if this ends up being like so brutally slow that we're waiting for a long time, I might shift tasks and kind of like divide my attention between two things. I like to do that whenever something is slow like this and I'm waiting on the machine, because I don't want to make you wait, my audience, my beloved audience. I don't want you to wait. Okay, well, the browser is starting up. We've almost got About Home loaded here. It's just sort of sorting itself out. It's got to initialize all of the bits and pieces. I actually can probably just browse to the page instead of waiting for that page to load. I'll take advantage of the fact that I can. There's the link right there. But I'll paste the link in and just hit enter. We're going to load this page. Okay, this isn't as slow as I thought it'd be. It's quite slow, but it's not as slow. I thought we would be waiting here for like several minutes, but this is probably going to be done within a minute. And once I'm done capturing the action of creating the window, I've got all the information I need. I can quit and we can start going to RR and stepping through. And that will be nice. Or at least nicer. It might still be slow. There will be things we have to wait for. But, you know. Okay, so wait for the browser to catch up. Okay, hit allow. We get this little window showing up in a second. We should get this little window showing up in a second. There it is. Okay, so now I'm going to stop and I'm going to exit and we can quit. And then we can start examining. We're going to wait for it to quit. Okay, good. It's shutting down. It will shut down cleanly. And then I can use RR. And I don't even have to do it in here. I can use it. And I have an SSH session into the same machine. The only reason I'm running it from the terminal in here, if you'll excuse me, sorry, is because the environment variables, whenever I run Firefox from my SSH session and target it at this desktop display, I can't draw on the title bar. And I don't know why that is. I actually have to run it from within this desktop display. And I think that has to do with our GTK widget backend and the environment variables it looks at. I don't actually know. Oh, while I'm here, I'm going to shift focus again. Sorry about this. But I want to run the WebRTC tests. Even though I already landed that thing, I did want to run those WebRTC tests just to make sure that everything still works. And so here's a little bit more waiting. But while I'm waiting, maybe I'll do a freestyle rap. Here we go. Just lay a beat. Yo. Waiting for the build to finish. It's not actually a build, and I'm not Finnish. I'm Canadian. You can tell how I say process and how I can also say a. Watching the test run, watching it go, trying to make sure my rap has flow. I'm watching the Twitch stream and the chat. I don't have a cat, but I've got a dog. Nice and smooth. This test runs. I hope you are having funs. Then I'll go and bake some buns. Then I will see if my baseball team has won. Yo, no baseball teams are winning because there's no major league sports right now. I don't even like baseball. Okay, we're almost done here. I get periodic, thumbs ups on my freestyle raps, but I also noticed there was a small drop off in the number of viewers. So if my freestyle rap is just upsetting, then I apologize. I'm sorry. But it's probably not very fun to watch a test run go as well. It's just that normally I do this headless mode, and that way I could just like continue working and not disrupt it. But I have a feeling headless mode doesn't work with the WebRTC tests. I seem to recall that. Almost done. Sorry, viewers. We're almost done. Go. I will feel very good if all of the tests pass, because if they do all pass, that means that my landing wasn't completely irresponsible. And then yay, they all passed. 6,890 tests passed. Woo! So my landing was responsible. Okay, we've got, let's go back to our RR thing that we were looking at. So here's my my SSH session. Let me pump up the font. And we're going to do RR replay. And then I'm going to set my breakpoint on JS math sign. And continue. Now, while we're waiting for this, because this is going to take a couple minutes. There's another thing I want to consider, which is Windows. So on Windows, there's a slightly different problem when it comes to this indicator. So I'm working on like lots of different problems all at the same time because there's a lot of building and waiting and stuff. So the problem I'm dealing with on Windows is different. On Windows, if you were to launch the... Actually, I don't know if this is going to reproduce the problem because I may have been debugging it and I'm in a weird state. Let's just check. Okay, yeah, here's the problem. The indicator kind of has this drop shadow right now, but normally it doesn't. And like the drop shadow is like this weird sort of old school menu drop shadow, and I don't want that. And whenever it doesn't have the drop shadow, like by default, if I were to open up Nightly right now, and I showed you what it normally looks like whenever you launch the indicator. What it normally looks like. Oh, I have to turn it on, I think. Legacy indicator off. Let's reload the page. And now we will allow it. So if you notice, this thing has no drop shadow whatsoever. And it's really hard to see. Like this is a white background that I've got back here. And this indicator is like really, really difficult to see whenever there is a white background. And what we want to do is be able to take advantage of the built-in operating system drop shadow. Like look at the window decoration, or look at what we've got around the browser window. We've got this nice drop shadow. It's subtle, but it's effective in that you can see the shape of the window with the white background. See, there's like this little cloud around it. And that's what I want for this thing, is a nice little cloud. And I was trying to figure out how we can get that cloud. So that's what I'm working on in the Windows case. Pause that in your head. We're going to switch contexts again. We're going to go back to our Linux build and see how RR is doing. It looks like we're still waiting for us to reach that JS math sign part. So if we don't hit it within the next 10 seconds, then I'm going to go back to the Windows case. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we're going back to Windows. What have I got so far figuring out this shadow thing? Well, the shadow has to do, I think, with the borders around the window. This is similar to the, it's similar code to what we're dealing with the GTK widget layer, is that we've got this like abstraction layer under the widget directory in Mozilla Central that knows how to talk to the underlying operating system's windowing system. And on Windows, that's like the Win32 like windowing API. And this is the implementation. And one of the things that I think one of the things I've observed is that I can influence the creation of that shadow if I comment out all of these rules that set border properties on the window and default to having border style none. If I use border style none, I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm forcing border style none on this window, on the indicator window, and I'll show you what that looks like. Meanwhile, we've hit our breakpoint, so now we're back into Linux mode. Den Shub says, Happy New Year. Yes, Happy New Year. Someone's New Year. Somewhere, it's January 1st in some time. It's like that, right? No, it's not. Unless parallel universes and someone got the clock wrong. All right, so we are at our jsmath.sign, and what we're trying to figure out is the opening of the window, what hints were set on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a breakpoint here on... Now, what do I care about? Under GTK NS window, the utility, the hint type, like this whole thing, all happens under NS window create. So this is where I'm going to set my breakpoint. NS window create. continue. We hit our breakpoint. And now I'm going to switch to that mode using Control X, Control A. No, that's not it. Control X, Control X A. Puts me in this mode where I can like see the source. It's very nice. And now I'm just going to next through a bunch of this stuff. Let's see what we're going to do here. We make sure we've got GTK toolkit. We're going to do all the common creation stuff. Blah de blah. We check to see if we have a parent window. We don't. Are we on an X11 display? I guess not. So let's make sure that we're an always on top window. We expect this to be an always on top window. Yes, okay. Now, what kind of window are we? So PM window type. We are a top level window. Okay. And so we say that we are of top window type. We're not a pop-up. So we're creating a new window of that type. And we're making sure that we can draw on the title bar. We're skipping a bunch of this stuff because we're not a pip window. All right. Checking to see if we're transparent. No. We're saying what our role name is. Here we go. And then we're setting, okay, so we're not a pip window. If I do is pip window. Oh, it thinks we're the pip window. That's why. It thinks we're the pip window. That's going to be a problem. Why does it think we're the pip window? I think I know the answer to this. It thinks we're the pip window because the way this is calculated is by looking at the particular flags that are passed. Sorry. The particular flags that are... Well, it's calculated by looking at the initial data that comes in, and then this is calculated by whether or not like all these particular flags are set, where it's an always on top window and it's got these things. It like assumes that, oh, if you've got these particular flags, then you must be the pip window. And that's not necessarily true now because we've got our special indicator. Okay. Well, okay, I want to try a couple of things. The first thing I want to try on Linux is, can we... So that was an interesting finding. I think I can quit. I now understand how that happens. What I want to do is figure out whether or not we can minimize, make like, if I remove that hint, what happens? Or can I, instead of removing that hint, can I augment the hint so that we are a minimizable utility window? That might actually be better because was that where it was done? Yeah, here. Full screen. Oh, when you full screen it, we set it to a normal window type. Then when we unfull screen it, we make it a utility type again. Interesting. Oh, here's where when we're creating it, we set the utility type. Okay. Let's see if we can use this flag. Net WM action minimize is an atom used to indicate can be maximized flag in a list of Windows support actions. Okay. So I wonder if we can like change a property on the window to say, hey, let's make this thing, you know, minimizable. That's just checking. A lot of reading. This one actually changes a property. Cardinal atom. Prop mode replace. This one gets. Okay. What is this thing? GTK property change. Window property type, mode, window property, a new type, format of the property, a value describing how the new data is to be combined with the current data. The data is, so prop mode can be replace, prepend, or append. Okay, so we want to replace, and the format, how are we doing this? Cardinal atom is the third one. What does that mean? Cardinal atom. Type. If mode is prepend or append, then this must match the existing type or an error will occur. So this is some representation of the type. Cardinal. XA cardinal. What the hell does that mean? Pardon my... Pardon my swear. For cardinals. So cardinal is some kind of type. Alrighty. What kind of types do these take? I would assume Boolean, but I'm looking for any kind of hint. Actually, you know what I'd normally do in situations like this? I look to see what other people do. Surely there are other people who have used this thing before. Oh, I see. They take the set. So maybe what I really want to do is append to a set. Change property. Allowed actions. An atom. We're going to replace with the values. And the V's are the values. Oh boy. I just want to like turn on minimizing. Okay, well, while I think about that, there's something else I want to try. Can we not do this part? Like, let's just not set this hint. And what happens if we do that? Build debug, make sure we're doing that. Does the window then minimize and restore properly? That would be good to understand. Meanwhile, back at Windows, we built successfully, and now I can show you what I meant about that drop shadow. Okay, so now I've got the drop shadow. This is what I want. It's not a movable window, unfortunately. All sorts of things are wrong with this, but check it out. It's got that nice little drop shadow behind it. It's also got that blue border that I don't want, but like that works. That's what I want. And I want to understand why. Because I don't really know yet. So here's what has been done. And maybe I should start writing this down, because I don't want to forget this. So this is hard to spot. We're going to copy this. I don't know if I already have a active bug. No. So on Windows, what appears to be involved? I want to reduce this to the very minimal set, because I made a number of changes as a guess on what is involved with creating this shadow. So let me actually take a look at the diff and then reduce the diff as small as possible. So I made these changes to WebRTC UI to make sure that it's not a dialog. And then I set these values, and then I added this Boolean, and then I commented all this stuff out. Now, I don't actually know which one of these things is really necessary and which is just like incidental. So let's start with the one I'm reasonably certain we don't need, which is this one, has caption. Let's just get rid of that. So we're going to get rid of this. I'm reasonably certain that's not necessary to get the effect. Let's rebuild. And while we wait for that, switching back to Linux. So we've got our successful build here. Let's run it from the terminal without RR. And what we're looking for here is, oh, SmurfD asks, before you minimize it, does it show in Linux all windows in the Ubuntu dock? Good question. Where is that? Where's the all windows in the Ubuntu dock? Is that down here? Show all applications? Is that this thing? Maybe it does. I can check. I hadn't checked. I was hoping that it was going to show up here in the sort of like the application list. Like the running and pinned application list. Where's our little window? Here it is. Now, we have our utility window. I'm going to minimize it. Yes. Okay, so it minimizes properly and it can come back. This is what we want. This is what we want. Now, I don't know what sort of ramifications there are here if we don't mark this as a utility window. But I like knowing that in the no for Firefox. Before you minimize, does it show in the all windows in the Ubuntu dock? No for Firefox. I don't know what you mean, SmurfD. So I like knowing that by simply removing that line, we can get the effect that we want. However, it's not clear to me that that's the right thing to do. In particular, I worry that, you know, I mean, window type hint utility sounds right. That's the kind of window this is. You almost want to make it so that if we know that this window is resizable, that if we know that the window is resizable, then we want to set that X11 flag. So let's try that. Let's see what we can do to try and set that X11 flag. I don't know if this is going to work. This might be a mistake. Let's see here. There was some example code we were looking at. Where was it? Yeah. Basically this, where we're going to say, hey, whoops, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to be here. It's like, hey, we want to, nope. Just paste in a bunch of garbage, and I want to line it up just right. And it's not, this is not the right property. Atom intern GTK property change. That looks right. This is not the property I want to change. The property I actually want to change is minimizable. Yeah. Well, this is one of the values that a particular property can have, is what I've learned. And what was that list? So here, yeah. Allowed actions. Net WM allowed actions. And I don't see any code that tries to change that in here. But like, this is what I want to add. I want to append. I don't want to replace. I want to append. So that's interesting. So this is the value I want to change, I think. Let's look at the definition again of set. Yeah, property. So the property is the second argument. Right. This is the property I want to change. And I don't know what GTK atom intern does, but let's presume that it does what I think it does, which is like get a representation of an atom, like converting a string to an atom. Okay. And then the type. So I don't know what the type is, but let's presume it's the cardinal type. Let's just make it up. Let's just see what happens and try and break things. And then the format, 32. Why not? Let's see what happens. And now instead of replacing, I want to append. I want to append a particular value. Yeah, the mode is GDK prop mode append. Whoops, forgot the D, but that's okay because I need to get rid of all this white space. I don't have the fancy Vim keyboard shortcuts in my head, so I know there's a faster way of doing this, but I don't know what it is. So I want to append, and then the data that I actually want to append on. Now it's using a GU char. I don't know if that's actually what I want to do. And then the number of elements contained in data. Yeah, there's going to be 1, I guess. All right. So that's not going to compile right off the bat because we don't have cardinal atoms set. I don't even know if that's the right type. Atom. Well, let's look at the type that was being used over here. So net WM bypass compositor. Does it appear to have similar... documentation on this thing. I want documentation. Come on. Here we go. Cardinal 32. Okay. So that is different than what I was expecting. I want to know about this one. WM allowed actions. It just says atom and then array. Okay. And that thing over here in GitHub, what were they using? What did they do with it? They create these atoms, and then what do they do with them? They put them in an atom array, and then that's what they... Oh, I see. I don't know if I have an atom array here to work with. How do I create? It's like cardinal atom, GK X11, X atom to atom. Value, state. Is it as simple as like GDK atom like that? Create an atom array. GDK atom intern. I'm learning all this as I go. I have no, like, I am not familiar with GDK or GTK at all. Just so we're clear. Well, let's see what happens if I try and create a GTK atom array. Or a GDK atom array, rather. So if I say, const allowed equals, const GDK atom allowed equals and then presumably if I do, where was that other chunk of code? Oh, I lost it. Compositor. And then do this. Now, what does GDK atom intern do again? GDK atom intern. Atom intern. Only if exists. If true, GDK is allowed to not create a new atom, but just return none if the requested atom doesn't already exist. So false. Yeah, we want that to be false. So atom intern, and this one is what's the value? It's called minimize. Okay. And now whenever I pass an array, cardinal atom, that's not right. Oh, it's an, what kind of, it's an array atom. How do I tell it that it's an array that I'm passing in? Well, how does it do it over here in this GitHub example? It says display window, allowed actions, then XA atom. What is XA atom? I'll bet you I can use the same technique that's used here. I'm going to say XA atom. GDK. I don't know. Atom type? Sure. Atom type. Format. Oh, geez. What is that number mean? What does that number mean? Format. The new format for the property of mode is GDK prepend or append. Then this must match the existing format. What's the existing format? Okay, format. What is the existing format of this thing? How do I know? Format. How do I know what format it's in? What does this number mean? 32. 32 bits? 32 characters? 32... What? Is that like a constant? This is bonkers. GDK property change format. Is this format? An integer describing how many bits are in each unit of data. It must be 8, 16, or 32. When data is transferred between the server and client, if they are of different endiannesses, it will be byte swapped as necessary according to the format. Okay, well, let's guess. Let's guess. We know it's one of these three values, 8, 16, or 32, so we're gonna say it's in 32. And then we're gonna say append, And then we're going to pass the value. And how's that done? We pass in just the pointer to allowed. And then how many values are in there? Just one. And then we exit. Let's see if this compiles. I will be very surprised. But it might. Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. Stranger Things, now airing on Netflix. This episode of The Joy of Coding is brought to you by Stranger Things. Are you in the 80s? Are you interested in Dungeons and Dragons and weird shit going on in the Upside Down? Then you would enjoy Stranger Things, airing on Netflix, starting today. I will be extremely surprised if this compiles. Holy shit, it's linking. Woo! Did we just guess? Yes. Yes, we did. If this works, I will be very pleased. I will not be surprised if it doesn't work. If it crashes, I will be similarly unsurprised. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for that to link, back to the Windows story, we've got our build done. Let's see if we still have our drop shadow, our native drop shadow. Let's get our white background going because that's easier to see. We do have our white, our drop shadow. You can tell there's a drop shadow. So we can stop sharing. We can close this down. We're going to remove another chunk that we had added. Again, just to remind you, what we're doing here is we're trying to reduce the changes that were necessary in order to get the drop shadow. So next, I'm going to actually shelve this change. See if shelving the changes to WebRTC UI.jsm causes the shadow to go away. That way, I don't have to do a full native build. I can just build faster, which will be faster. Okay. How's everyone doing out there? Oh, I can't hear you. All right. Run. Okay, so we still have our drop shadow. So those changes that I made to dialog, to WebRTC UI, not necessary. That was not necessary in order to get the drop shadow. Very interesting. So what's left? What is left? Akris is like, it's calm, nothing happening. Nothing happening. Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm glad it's not like crazy and hectic. So let's get rid of these flags that I added. Let's get rid of these flags I added over here. Build binaries. Now let's flip back to our Linux machine while we're waiting for this to build. Yeah, that's done building. So we can go here and we can run. And I'm very excited to see what happens. Very excited. If this works first time, I will be so shocked. I will be so shocked. If it doesn't work, I will not be shocked. Smurf D has stomach issues. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. All the best. I'm sending positive stomach vibes your way. My stomach here. My stomach's gonna talk to yours. I'm gonna lower the microphone.
Smurf D, I hope your stomach feels better soon.
There you go. Let me just raise the mic up. I'm so excited to see what happens whenever we get this dialogue. This, not a dialogue, this pop-up. what happens? It might just crash right away. Are we ready? Allow. Where's the window? Where is it? Is it not coming? I guess nothing happened. Okay, that's anticlimactic but not surprising. Probably because we did it wrong. We did it all wrong. Let's see if there are any errors being spewed. Oh, because we crashed. Because we crashed. Lovely. What? Stop it. And the reason we crashed was because stack and libzool something. Actually, what I can do is I can attach to this this process. Oh no, by attempting to copy the PID, I killed the process. Brutal. But I think that taught us a lesson. We broke it. So I wonder if the format is wrong. That's my first guess. The format is wrong. Maybe it's not. It's 32. Well, what is GTK property change supposed to do if the format is wrong? This much match the existing format, or an error will occur. How will an error occur? This returns void. Like, does it just mean your program might crash? Okay, well that's an easy thing we can check. Let's slip in a different value here. Let's put in 8 and see what happens. Meanwhile, back on Windows land, build is done. By the way, for Windows, you might need to use enable server-side decorations. I don't remember how to control it though. Good question. I also don't like this widget stuff is all very new to me. This is not what I normally spend my day doing, but I'm learning about it. Okay, so that's interesting. We've got no shadows now. We don't have our drop shadow. So those values, this thing that I put in here was important. Now I have a theory that I only need the thick frame part. And that's based on some documentation or some Stack Overflow stuff I was reading. So let's put that back and see what happens. Meanwhile, Linux is still building, and I'm still hungry. I might have to end the stream shortly because I haven't actually had lunch yet. So my blood sugar is like in the sewer. This episode of The Joy of Coding is also brought to you by Letterkenny. Letterkenny is a television show produced and filmed and about rural Ontario, which is where I grew up. So if you're interested in learning more about the world in which I grew up, Letterkenny kind of captures some of that. It's a little more cartoonish, a little more lowbrow, but I enjoy it. Letterkenny. If you want to see how I grew up, or what my town was like when I grew up, that's a pretty close approximation. Okay, so we do have our drop shadow. So you need to have the thick frame flag set. And then I think it's like two things. You must have the thick frame flag set. Not if. And you need to have your border style set to none. Okay. That's interesting. So I'm going to write that down. It seems we need to have WS thick frame set and a border style of none. Why? Why? I don't know if that's a thing we control or if that's like the Windows operating system being like, these are the rules. You want to drop shadow, gotta do it this way. All right, let's run this again on Linux. I'm going to probably stop the stream in the next 2 minutes or so because I need to eat. Because you can't just like eat metal. Whoop-a-boo, whoop-a-boo. Okay. So I'm going to move this window actually slightly so we can see if we crash. We will probably crash. And if we do, then I'm going to try actually attaching. Yeah, okay, we crashed. Let us attach a debugger. Let's follow these instructions. Copy. New terminal. New tab. Actually, I can do it over here in SSH land. Danny Colon goes, well, technically we eat metal. That's true. That's true. I have a high iron diet. That is very true. Good point. But if I were to attempt to eat this metal puzzle, this metal physical puzzle thing that I still have not solved, then I'd probably lose all my teeth and would not gain much sustenance. I'd gain probably some, what do you think this is? Aluminum? Yeah. I don't know if I can digest aluminum. In Canada, we just say aluminum. I think somewhere in the UK, maybe in England, they call it aluminium. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. If you look at the spelling, maybe it's two different metals. I don't actually know. Aluminium. Aluminum. Yeah, I think I pronounce it aluminum, but I'm pretty sure it's aluminium. And we've just been taught wrong in like North America. In American and English, Canadian English, we call it aluminum, but it's aluminium, or at least that's the proper spelling, aluminium, which they just teach us wrong over here in North America. That's how they roll. Okay, so we've got our debugger attached. Let's backtrace. It would not surprise me if the problem is inside of GDK property change, then the signal handler is called. Yeah, it's this thing. Oh, the window that I'm passing is null. That's a problem. Okay, so that's probably the problem right there. Why is the window I'm passing null? So I can quit this. All right, I'm going to do one last test on this, one last pass. Where is the window is the first argument. Widget get window m shell. And m shell GTK window m shell versus GTK widget get window m shell. What if I do GTK widget m shell, or GTK window rather, sorry. Will it like that? Format equals 8. And why format is not 32? I don't know. What does the format mean? Something. X11 random numbers. I don't know what the value of an atom is. Like what's the length of an atom? Unknown. Okay, so it doesn't like that first argument. No known conversion from GTK window to G. Oh, it wants a GDK window. Ugh. Okay, GDK window. How do I get the GDK window? I think I've seen us do this before. GDK window. MGDK window is GTK window get window. Oh, and I think that only happens. So where am I? I'm on line 4454. You know what? I got a feeling I have to do this later. That's the problem. Because the window is not realized yet. So the GDK window does not exist. Yeah, I have to create a container and like all these things. So what happens if I wait until here? And I'm going to say, instead of that, we're going to say, oh, I've lost connection to my computer. What's happening? It's thinking. It's still alive over here. No, what's happening? Well, that's a disappointing conclusion. Even though the machine is still responding. Oh, my virtual machine has crashed. VMware has crashed. Lovely. That's what happened. Well, I think that's a fine note to end on. Hey, thanks so much for watching episode 218 of The Joy of Coding. Oh, Adam is card 32, so has 32 bits. Oh, excellent. If Adam is card 32, amazing. I'll use 32 and not 8. Hopefully the drive isn't completely corrupted because of this sudden crash of the operating system. Thanks for watching episode 218 of The Joy of Coding. I won't see you next week. There's no episode next week due to meetings. So I won't see you next week, but I'll see you the week after. I hope you have yourself a great couple of weeks. I'll see you soon. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye. Here's
It's me, Mario.
closing music.
The joy of coding.
See ya.